Hi everyone, I'm Omri, and I want to show you today a few ways we can use the make noise O control together with the modular system in a modular context. I want to show you a few modules we can use to add variation and movement to sequences coming from the O control. Actually, this will be part one. There will be another video. There is so much to show that it's split into two different videos. Thank you again, Perfect Circuit, for having me. Let's do this. So the first module I want to show you is a quantizer. Now this might seem obvious to some of you because the O control will output unquantized voltage, which means that if you want to stay in a certain scale, you will need a quantizer, but a quantizer will also add a performative aspect to your patches, to your sequences. You can perform your sequences live, change them live, add intensity, add variation, add movement, and so on. So in this case, I have the STO going through the mimeophone. Right, it will sound like this. And I have the first row of the O control set to send out pitch information. In this case, of course, you can use any other row. I'm going to use the first one. Right, so if I send this directly to the STO without a quantizer, and I start changing the notes, right, we get unquantized pitch, which is totally okay, but I like having my pitch stay in a certain scale, so I'm going to use a quantizer for this. I have here the quantizer from ADEC, so I'm going to send this first to the quantizer and then back to the STO. Right, and now this sequence stays in this scale, right, with the notes I chose, and now I have two options. I can either change the notes on the quantizer, turn them on and off, and by that change the sequence. Right, just like this. Or I can change the sequence on the O control itself, change the different steps, and like this perform the sequence, create something similar to the sound of Caterina Barbieri maybe. Right, and just change the sequence on the fly and perform the sequences live. Another thing I want to show you is adding probability to the O control. Now also here there are a few ways you can do this. For example, you can add probability to the outcoming gates of the O control, but I want to show you how you can again add variation and movement to your sequences. So what I have here, I have an 8-step sequence programmed. If I play this, Right, this is the sequence. The voice itself is the new Pony VCO from Befaco with the wave folding and everything. It's going through Ghost. For now, Ghost is doing nothing, and I have it going also through a nice reverb, as you can hear. Right, so this is the sequence. Now let's say that I want this to be a 5-step sequence. So with the O control, what we do, we take step number 6. There is a gate output of each step. So we take the gate output of step number 6 and I connect this to the reset input. And now each time it reaches step 6, it will reset, which means that we have a 5-step sequence. Right, but now I can add probability to this. Let me stop this for a second. I can add probability to this. So we have sometimes a 5-step sequence, and sometimes in this case it will be an 8-step sequence. And again, we add variation and movement. So there are a few ways we can add probability. For now, I will use a dedicated module. I will show you also soon enough how you can do this with a simple sample and hold module. What I have here, branches from mutable instruments, and probably it's not available anymore. But if you have it, it's a great module for something like this. But there is also an alternative. Here I hope you can see this. This is the 1U flip module from After Later Audio, which is basically a branches clone, which is great. First of all, it's in 1U, which is always nice. And it's also a really, really useful module. So what I will do this. I will take the output from step number 6 that we had connected to the reset, and I will send it first to flip. And now flip will add probability to this gate, to this trigger. And then from flip, I will send this back to the reset input. And I have it coming out of output A. So if I turn this knob now all the way to the left, every time the trigger will come out of A. So for now we will have no probability. So we'll have always a 5-step sequence. Right, if I turn this all the way to the right, it will come out of output B, which is connected to nothing in this case. So it will always be an 8-step sequence. But again, I can make it play most of the time a 5-step sequence, and then every now and then an 8-step sequence. If I turn this into somewhere here in the about 11 o'clock. Right, so now we have a bit more variation in the sequence. Of course, this can also be a performative tool. You can control when it will be a 5-step sequence and when it will be an 8-step sequence. But I like to have this with probability. Right, pay attention also, the last 3 notes that will make this an 8-step sequence are a bit higher. And also now what I will do, I will add even more variation here. I'm using the 3rd row of the O control to change the decay time of the envelope I'm using. So if I do something like this, right, when it's an 8-step sequence, the envelope will be also longer. Right, if I add some delay here on the Ghost module, can add some distortion, play with the wave folding. Right, so you can see the variation we get. Sometimes we get an 8-step sequence, sometimes a 5-step sequence. I can add a bass to this. I have here crewing from Instruo going through the AJH filter. Right, I can also add sample rate reduction with Ghost. So again, I want to show you how you can add probability to the O control even if you don't have a dedicated sort of probability module like branches or the flip module I showed you before. This we will do with the sample and hold module. So here I have a sequence going. In this case, I'm utilizing the time parameter here on the O control, so 2 steps are a bit slower. The voice itself is still the Pony VCO from Befraco going through Ghost. Just in this case, I added some panning modulation with the X-pan, also from Make Noise. Right, so this is the sequence. Now the O control has also a direction trigger input. Right, it will flip the direction of playing. For now it's playing from left to right, as you can see. Right, there is also a button here or a pad here that you cannot see that you can also manually flip this or switch the direction. Right, so now it's going in reverse, but again we want to utilize the trigger input and again with probability. So let's say that I want that every time it reaches step 4, again there is a gate output for each of the steps, so every time it reaches step 4, there will be a probability, there is a chance that the direction will flip. So I'm going to send this gate to trigger or to gate a sample and hold module. In my case, I'm using PIP from Neutral Labs. This is much more than a sample and hold module, but it will also output synced random voltage. Right, so I can connect this to the sync input. Basically, this will be the trigger input. And you can see that every time it reaches this step, the color here will change, which is basically the level of the signal. Right, so now I have synced random modulation, and again you can use any sample and hold module you have. Right, and now from this sample and hold, I will take, in this case with PIP, I have unipolar and bipolar outputs. I will use the unipolar output, right? And whenever the signal, the random stepped signal in this case, coming from PIP, coming from the sample and hold, whenever it crosses a certain threshold, according to the O control, this direction parameter will be triggered and the sequence will flip direction. So let's have a look at this. Right now it will go in reverse. Have a look here on the arrows. Let's wait for it. And again, every time it reaches step 4, there is a chance, just like now, that the direction will switch. Right, and again, now it will play backwards. So again, this will add some variation and movement to your sequences, again with probability, with chance, in this case with sample and hold. Now you can take this even one step further and say, for example, each time the O control reaches step number 5, it will reset. So it will play 4 steps and then will reset. But since we are randomly or with probability or with chance switching the direction, it means that we will have 2 separate sequences that will play according to the sample and hold. So let's have a listen to this. Again, step number 5 will go to the reset input. This is one sequence. Now it switched and played the second sequence. Right, so you have even 2 sequences that will switch according to the probability, in this case from the sample and hold. Okay, that was it. This was part 1. Again, there is another part where we look at switching between sequences, even using the O control as a voice by itself. Thank you again, Perfect Circuit, for having me. Cheers.